Mac, and Unix, Linux. It's kind of soup to nuts, a little bit like a baby version of PixInsight, I guess, in that it takes your raw images that you shoot. It doesn't have anything to do with acquiring the images, but once you've acquired the images, put them in Cyril, and it'll take you all the way through a finished image. Although pretty much everybody, myself included, spends time in doing a little bit of finish processing in either Photoshop, or I use GIMP and Darktable because they're free and I'm cheap and they work good. Anyway, this, well, I hope I can get at the menus up here. There's something saying I'm screen sharing, covering them up.
If you can move that, I think you can drag it.
And yeah,
you can actually drag the little message, maybe.
That should help. All right, I'll start over here. This panel you see on the right-hand side of the screen is basically all your steps for file conversion, setting up your sequences, doing the calibration frames, registration. The plotting is basically gets you all the statistics and information on your stars in your image, and the rejection stacking. And the final item here is a console. It runs both as a GUI and with a command line interface down here. Anything you can do with one, you can do with the other. Well, there are some options you can only get with the command line that they didn't put in the menus, but they're pretty obscure. And Cyril is set up with a scripting language that's really easy to use. So once you've been through this process manually, going through file conversion by loading all your raw camera files, whatever format they're in, creating sequences out of them, and then running them through the calibration process and setting all the parameters you want to use for calibration. Do you want to use your bias and dark and flat frames or not? And enabling various features within the calibration process. Likewise with registering your files and then doing the final stacking. You figure out right away that it's quick and easy just to write a script for whatever it is you want to do and save it, not to have to do that manually every time. So these are the scripts that I use. There are hundreds of them available that you can download from various places on the internet, but you can write your own just as easily once you get used to what the commands are. So you can see up here, there's all different types of processing that you can do: mono pre-processing, one-shot cameras, including extracting HA and O3. Drizzling, you can add various calibration frames you can use or not use. And there's a whole bunch of other sorts of things that will do star reduction for you, run you through the whole process that you would typically do manually to do minimizing your stars.
Hey, Scott, excuse me.
Yeah.
Should we be seeing the scripts? I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, you just be seeing the names of the scripts right here.
Yeah, we're not seeing that.
Coming down.
You're not seeing it?
No.
Huh.
We see your cursor, but nothing comes down when you click it.
Yeah.
Wow. Wonder why it doesn't show.
Try sharing your desktop instead of just the app.
Okay. How the heck do I do that?
You know, just hide your bank account before you share it.
Screen sharing. Been fortunate enough to never have to use Zoom before I joined this club, so I'm a nut tyro with it.
You're welcome.
How the heck all right, how do I go about sharing my desktop? I don't see anything on this menu.
You probably have to stop sharing and then reshare, and then just choose your desktop instead of your the app that you chose. You should have a little window that, there you go. We see it now.
Now we got them.
Okay. Now you see the prop down?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, each one of these represents a script, which is just a simple scripting language. It's very similar to Unix, and just calls the commands in order with all of the variables and parameters and coefficients associated with it. But you can do this all manually if you're a masochist and you want to go through it that way. but all of the functions that are available can be put into the scripts. And makes life much easier. So that's what this right-hand pane is. On the left, you see an active window that shows the file you're working on, and it's always live. It always shows you exactly, in other words, it's always a live preview of what you're doing, so you don't have to update it manually. I've loaded the results of a stacking I did of M33 here. This is a linear file, and I guess I could go through how the image processing or post-processing works. Most everything is in this menu here. There are a couple different types of stretching functions you can use, although pretty much everything is wrapped up in this generalized hyperbolic stretch transformation. It has all the other ones included in it. So there's really no reason to use those. I'll pop that open. And I think it's virtually identical to what PixInsight has, including all the sliders and so forth that you use to address it.
And when you choose your symmetry points, are you able to use the display on the left? Is that how it works, or?
You can. Here, let me change the display to an auto stretch.
Yeah, there you go. All right, yeah.
So now you can see this is the computer's idea of what an auto whoops, it automatically jumped over there and stretched it. Yeah, you can just pick your symmetry point either by selecting a part. It won't let me do it here. You can either pick a spot on the curve and you see how it's selected that symmetry point from the curve, where you might pick it, or you can come over and just pick a spot anywhere in your image and choose it that way with the eyedropper. Either way.
Yeah, that's very similar to PixInsight.
Yep. Let me just pop it back into linear here. So you set your symmetry point wherever you would like to put the inflection point in the curve, and basically increase contrast around that spot in the histogram. And then you've got the local stretch intensity, which just at that inflection point determines basically the order of the curve that you're going to induce. So I guess on an initial stretch, basically we take that all the way over and just start dragging this thing out until things start to appear. And somewhere around that point, I would stop and get the stars out of here, but that will take a little longer than you want to put up with. So I won't do that.
And Scott, what do you use for that? You use StarNet?
Yes, it's built in. If you go down here, there's a whole star processing. StarNet is here, integrated, and you can run it to generate a star mask. It'll generate the star mask and the starless image, save them both. You can do it for a whole sequence. You can tell it to pre-stretch, which some people like to do, but I haven't had much luck with. I find it better to stretch it ahead of time before sending it off to StarNet. And this recompose on completion will, when it's removed the stars, it'll pop open a new window that has both the starless image and the star mask right next to each other with all the stretching tools for each one. So you can sit and fiddle stretch with them independently while you're looking at both of them, which is nice. So you don't have to go off and fiddle with one and then fiddle with another, then overlay them and see how they look.
What is the support like on the internet? Are there, I mean, there's just like unending a number of YouTube videos on PixInsight, of course, and from my experience, there's a fair amount on APP. What about Cyril?
Yeah, there are a lot on Cyril as well. It's pretty popular, I think, for people who don't want to spend the time and money, at least immediately, on PixInsight. So there are a number of really good ones, maybe a dozen or so people that have made big collections of videos of basically everything you might ever want to know that are quite good. So yeah, the support's really good. The documentation is really good. the software gets updated about twice a year, and it's seems to be a pretty active support group, and the people that are generating the software are really active. So you can talk to them directly if you want pretty easily, which I guess is true. PixInsight too.
Is it all overseen by one entity, or is it, you know, like PixInsight, everybody's got their fingers in the pie, and you know, we're always getting updates or changes to one thing or another, which
I don't
quite
think
frankly,
so.
I kind of like, because you end up getting some new features without having to wait for a big release.
Yeah, Cyril, I don't think is like that. It's monitored, or at least by either a single person or a small group. So there aren't people, you know, chucking in updates to the program indiscriminately. You pretty much have to wait for a release to get anything, other than scripts and things like that, which you can get anytime, anywhere. But the basic software it's pretty stable. Okay. Just to show you some of the other things that are available. Well, let's go back in here. I didn't show you much of the stretching functions. There are generalized hyperbolic transform. There's the inverse hyperbolic transform if you want to try to take something out of your image instead of add it in. And then the arc sine and modified inverse arc sines are here. Linear stretch, so you can just drag your whole histogram over to change the black point, essentially. And you can do that for the independent channels, whichever you're using. And it has a saturation stretch as well, which lets you use all these same stretching functions, but instead of affecting the red, green, blue channels, the luminance channels, whatever you have, it only affects the color saturation, which is this yellow curve. So you can change it the same way you change the histogram, which is kind of handy. If you want to add saturation in lighter or darker areas of the image, you can do it. And of course, you can do any of these things with some or all, or none, or not none, some or all of the color channels independently. And color calibration, you can go in and do a photometric color calibration on it. Let's see, I got that right. That's right. It'll go off and do that for you.
Does it run off the same Gaia databases that we're using?
Yes, I assume it
Okay.
does. Right now it's using the Nomad and APAS. And you can download local databases as well if you don't want to use the internet. You can also do basic color calibration. For instance, if you can't plate solve for some reason, you go in and do it manually by picking various areas on the image, and it'll do a pretty good job of matching the photometric calibration without having to go and query the database. This is handy. It just goes in and gets rid of the excess green noise. If you're using a one-shot color camera RGB, you can just go on and it'll take that right out for you in one step.
Yeah, that was pretty quick.
Yeah, and there are some parameters you can fiddle with there, not too many.
So it even uses the same terminology as PixInsight. Like that looked like SCNR, and it, you know, the drop down had the same terminology. Are they?
Yeah, there's
are they
definitely
just copying the PixInsight code? Because it is public.
I don't think so, because some of the things I think came out in Cyril before they came out in Pix, and some of the things I'm pretty sure did. So I don't know what's going on. There's some kind of incest going on somewhere, but I don't know what it is. I don't know too much use for negative transformation, but you can certainly do that.
Actually, that one's kind of cool. If you have those narrowband pink, what are they? Not pink. What color is it? Those the weird color you get out of narrowband stars sometimes. If you
Oh, yeah.
if you invert it, they turn green. You can then run the remove green on the inversion and then invert it back.
Yeah, that's right. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, if you get a magenta,
Magenta, thank you.
yeah. Here's your wavelets. You can set up as many layers as you want so that you can go in and fiddle with the granularity and mess with the different scale wavelets in your image if you want to bring out certain features. And that works pretty well.
Hey, Scott, can you expand on that a little bit? I'm not familiar with the wavelength concept.
Basically, here I can show you what it does. Let's just go ahead and fiddle with this a little bit. These each represent different scales of features in the image. It breaks the image down into fine grain to large blocky areas, and you can fiddle with each one with these sliders to the layer one will be the smallest feature size. You can see that, I hope you can see anyway, that it's sharpening but also adding noise.
Uh-huh.
You go up to the larger, go up to the larger scale, it affects it on larger and larger
Wow, yeah.
block sizes. And it is fun to mess with, because you can, if you have some features in like a galaxy, there's some dark dust lanes or something, if you find the right scale and twiddle with a little bit, you can really enhance that with that feature. There's banding reduction here if you have problems with banding, either color banding or light banding in your image. You can try to trick them out with that. Contrast limit of adaptive histogram equalization. I have not messed with this very much, but you can tinker with your image with this a little bit, and so far I've mostly been able to make things worse, but I have seen people use it and make improvements with it by adjusting that to a different grid tile size and changing the clip limit. You can sharpen things a little bit. In theory, I don't have much luck with it. Here's where you can go in and change your, get rid of your hot and cold pixels, try to tune them out. Deconvolution. This will work either blind or you can generate your PSF. Sorry, I've got a nasty little dog here that won't show. You can generate the PSF directly from the stars in the image. It'll go through and find a representative sample and generate the point spreading function for you. So then you can go in and do the deconvolution that has a whole bunch of different models you can use, and you can see the different parameters you can tinker with, the number of iterations and algorithms and so forth. I'm guessing that's pretty similar to what's in PixInsight.
All these options are very familiar.
Yeah. You can do an FFT on your image if you want to take it into the frequency domain. It'll generate two image files, or two files, one for the modulus or magnitude and the other for the phase. Then you can go into the modulus file, and you can usually get some of the noise out of the image in the modulus file, then do an inverse fast Fourier transform back into the time domain, and you'll have theoretically improved that. I haven't messed with this much. I'm guessing it's going to be kind of a rat hole to go into. And besides, I'm happy that I've forgotten most of what I knew about FFTs from college anyway. So there's a median filter. There's a noise reduction, which it's kind of rudimentary. It works, and you can do it single pass, double pass, but it doesn't work as well as Topaz does it. Or even Darktable or GIMP have better noise reduction. So I don't even bother with that. You can do better outside of Cyril. I have no idea what rotational gradient does because I haven't used it. I haven't looked it up either. I don't know if it's, actually, I shouldn't say because I just flat out don't know what that does yet. If there's an equivalent in PixInsight, you guys probably know what it does.
No.
All the star processing is here, star net removal is here. You can go and identify all your stars, which it should be doing, but doesn't seem to be. Huh, that's strange. Oh, I see why. There. Come on. Oh, that's completely strange. I gotta get rid of those. Try again.
Do you have to grab a sample?
No, it'll do the entire, there we go. It
Oh,
goes and
yeah.
finds stars and it gives you all the statistics and you can sort and eliminate, add the ones that it misses. If it thinks it's a galaxy and it's really a star, you can go ahead. You can do a tilt analysis on your image. It'll tell you how badly your sensor is tilted, and this one's pretty darn good.
Not bad.
That's
Yeah.
ASTAP right there.
Yep. So anyway, there's a way to, oops, I shouldn't have done that.
Incest lives.
There's a thing here called full resynthesis, which I don't know if PixInsight has a equivalent to that or not. What that does is it goes into your stars and takes the Gaussian profile from each star, the color profile from each star, and then forces it to be perfectly round and reapplies the Gaussian brightness and color profile to those stars. So if you have egg-shaped stars and you run that, it'll force them perfectly round.
Wow.
It sounds like the new Blur exterminator.
Yeah.
And
Does it now? Is that also used for, you know how sometimes you'll get the center of stars that will have some artifact. It'll either be completely white or sometimes it'll actually flip around and it'll be dark because it's been clipped in some way. Does it also smooth that out?
the desaturator here will go in, and if you have a problem with saturated stars and the centers are pure white, it'll basically take the color profile and knock the stars back to the point where it goes and gets the color profile from the part of the star image that's not saturated and applies it to the center of the stars that are.
Oh yeah, that's what exactly what I was thinking of. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and then but the resynthesis, I mean, it literally will take ugliest stars you ever saw and make perfect circles out of them, which is kind of cheating. It almost seems like. You can save a really messed up image with that, and it just takes a second or two, and bang, it's done. But I don't want to do it because it also it produces the star mask and it takes everything else and throws it away. So you have to go in and produce your starless image first and separate it, otherwise you'll lose it. But it definitely works, and I think they covered everything that was in the star processing. Yeah. And that's just basic geometry operations like distorting things, clipping them, cropping them and rotating them. Dynamic background extraction. You can do it both polynomial and RBF. Fiddle with the parameters, add a dither, and it just generates the pattern for you, and you can just go in with your right mouse button and blow away anything you don't want. And then do the background extraction. That took 9 seconds. And that'll take care of gradients and so forth. And this will extract your channels, whether LRGB channels for you, and produce separate files for each. I haven't messed with linear match. RGB compositing, this is just how, if you have RGB or SHO, whatever you have, luminance, you just plug each one of the individual filter files in here and it composites them for you. And you can pick different color spaces and mess with the color balance and layer brightnesses and so forth. And then go through all the usual post-processing.
And does that do the narrowband stuff too? Like I see a plus mark, so you could add SH and O in there and
Yeah.
build different color.
Yep, you could, if you went in and put like SHO for these three, and you could just choose any color to be the channel that you assigned those to. So you can produce some pretty wild colors.
Looks like the color mapper we've been working with.
It does. It does.
And that works real well. I've used that a lot. Uh-oh. What did I do there?
Oh, you got to put more money in.
Hit the undo button. Hit the undo button.
Yeah, good quarters.
Won't let me.
I've got quarters if you need them.
Oh, let me close that window. Well, there's a few things that don't work real well on the Mac here, but
There's a close button.
there we go. That'll work. Unfortunately, I have to.
Are you able to reduce the size of that console there so you can get larger image on your screen?
Yeah, you can
Great.
make it any size you want or get rid of it entirely. You don't have to look at that at all while you're working, unless you're using command line. Yeah, I'm about done here. This is the entire pixel math module where you can do all the things you're familiar with doing with pixel math. It'll be done here. That's pretty much it. It works with most any file format, although its native format is 32-bit FITS.
So can you go back? You skipped over the stacking stuff pretty quickly. What is a conversion? Why do you need to convert files?
Well, it depends on what format you take the images in. If you're shooting camera raw files or something other than FITS, this is just a simple converter. You drag your file in here and it converts all to a sequence of FITS files.
So it'll take FITS files, right?
Oh yeah, that's its native format. It'll turn everything into FITS files.
Okay, so, but it doesn't take XISF files, the PixInsight format.
I believe that's right because I tried to mess with them and I found I couldn't.
Okay.
There's a list here of all the file formats it does take, and that isn't one of them.
Okay, and what's a sequence?
Sequence is just a series of all your subframes that are associated with each other, because they all have, for instance, the same exposure time and camera temperature, and they'll all be processed as a group. So you can have several different sequences all going into one image if you shot on different nights with different camera temperatures or exposure times.
Do I have to define those, or can I just take a whole bunch of files and throw at it and it figures out which are the darks and the lights and the flats and times and matches them up?
You don't have to mess with any of this stuff. The last thing I was going to show you is the way I usually use Cyril. Let me see if I can figure out how to get rid of this. I'll get to it. Here, let's put that. All right. How do I get to?
Is that the Needle Galaxy?
Yeah, that's the Outer Limits 891 NGC.
Oh, that's Outer Limits. Okay, I think that's different.
We shot that last night. All right, how do I get this out of the way? There we go. This is Cyrillic, which is the scripting engine. We load up a project here. This allows you to do just what you said, throw all your files in a pot and it figures out what to do with them. Here's my O and S files for the fish head. And you go into each one of these and it's all hidden behind that And you can just drag your files and dump them in here. And then you can set whatever properties you want to set for each individual one can be completely different. And then you can also set all the properties for each of your calibration frames in your image files. And that's because this is not a good example, but it shows you a complete flow path of what it's going to do, and you can mess with that. And then it just goes off and does all that work for you, starts up Cyril, and you wind up with this fully stretched image ready to post process after this thing runs. Let's see.
Fully stretched or stacked?
Stacked.
Stacked.
You have to do the stretching. And to create a new project, how many sessions do you want to run? If you're running mono, what filters do you have? If you're running color, do you want to extract HA and O3? It basically makes everything real easy and quick. You don't even have to mess with Cyril except to do the post-processing. Anyway, I think I took a whole lot more of your time than I intended to.
It was interesting.
No, that's a real good look at it. And how long have you been working with it?
I started doing astrophotography in last January or February, so it's been less than a year, and this is all I've ever used.
Okay.
So I don't know anything else other than having looked at videos on PixInsight, YouTube, and so forth.
Judging from the images you're putting out, you're making really, really good progress.
Yeah, so far, I don't think the software is limiting me. It's still me that's limiting me. So I
Yeah.
haven't found anything that I just plain can't do that I think I might be able to do elsewhere. But if you're already into PixInsight and you've spent the money and you spent all the time necessary to learn it, there's absolutely no reason to use this that I can think of. But if you're starting out, you don't want to spend the time and money on PixInsight right away, it's a good option. I think pretty much agreed that it's maybe the second best system out there. I know from having watched the videos, it's much easier to learn.
Yeah.
It can't be harder.
No, you can't.
That's for sure.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Scott.
You're welcome. How do I stop sharing?
Well, you just click stop sharing.
Stop share. That would
There
do
you
it.
go. All right. Very good. All right, John, you are up.
Okay. Let's see. How do I share? I see. All right. Well, Mike, you said pick the desktop. Was that for a reason?
No, that's because he wasn't getting the menu drop downs.
All right. You see this?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so this is PixInsight. I gave 12 steps, and I think I got a couple of them reversed. I had Miller Lite at last. That actually comes first. So go ahead and mark those notes. Briefly, there's no way to cover everything. Where you start is batch processing. I'm not going to get into this at all. This is another for another time. So you would take your biases or darks, you would drop them in here using the buttons at the bottom here. You can load your lights, your darks, your flats. They would end up here. What you're seeing are masters because I've already ran through this. Here's all your lights. This is a calibration page where you verify that everything is linked to the appropriate darks and flats. You identify the CFA images as RGB. You would apply your cosmetic correction, And then here you can see your calibration flow diagram to make sure everything's correct. That's how it goes. Up here is what you're going to be left with when it's finished. And this is just going to be one file, RGB color space, 5 hours, 15 minutes. And here's what it's going to run through. So at this point, you go to run in the lower right after picking a reference frame, an output directory, and that's it. So your lights, darks, biases, flats, all go in here. Couple settings. If you're going to dither, you would enable dither over here. And then you hit run. So what you end up with is, I was going to do RGB, but since Scott covered that, let's do narrowband. You're left with 3 master files. So you're going to open up your master files and you have these. So your HA, your S2 and O3, all 3 mono. Now these, if you look on the green or on the tab right here, it's green. There's a green bar there. These are linear images. And I've got to move this bar also. Okay. So if I kill the stretch, that's what you see, okay? So these are all stretched, but they're still linear. The next step I would do would be linear fit. Okay, for those of you unfamiliar with PixInsight, all these process icons on my right are similar to what we do with shortcuts or bookmarks with Google or Firefox. Here's all the processes. This is like everything process-wise. Instead of coming up here and picking them all the time, you create a shortcut and you stack your shortcuts on the right-hand side. They're process icons because scripts, you can't make a shortcut. I think there's a few exceptions, but it's a time saver. All your workflow is basically set up on your right. As you can see, this workflow right here, screen transfer function, which is down here. And then this is actually set up for the Pac-Man. But these are the steps right here. So we just use these in your processing. I'm going to do a little bit different since we're working on narrowband. So linear fit, you would choose your reference image. In this case, I'm going to use HA.
And why do you choose HA?
I did, good question, Mike. Why do I choose HA? Linwood, if you can chime in, you're supposed to linear fit to the highest.
Right.
I thought it was the lowest median.
Well, if you fit, it depends on whether you run any risk of oversaturating stars. If you have stars that are bright, big stars, and you pick a lower one to linear fit to a higher one, it's going to also enhance those stars and may clip them.
Okay. What will it do to your nebula?
Well, they're all going to end up. I mean, this is a floating point thing, so it doesn't realistically clip on the low end, but it can clip on the high end. So when you look at that, this is displayed in 16-bit. It's got a 655. It's got a maximum that's almost saturated, and really it probably is saturated. Now the problem with this thing is you can't tell how many pixels are set. Well, That's not true. You see where it says unclipped up there? If you check that, just for 1 second, check it. See how it went to 100? Now uncheck it. What that does with it unchecked, it is not counting saturated pixels. So by subtracting it from 100, you can see that 0.00055 percent. I'm sorry, 0.00055%, or basically nothing, is saturated. Now the problem is you don't know which ones are close to saturated. So if what I do is kind of eyeball it, and if I see any fairly bright stars in there, I will fit the lower ones to the higher one. If I've already maybe taken the stars out and there's nothing anywhere close to saturation, then I might fit the higher, or the higher one. I'm sorry, I may have said that wrong. I would fit the higher ones to the middle or lowest so that it will pull them down.
Okay. So there's no hard and fast rule.
You don't want it to clip.
What's that?
I said that the rule is you don't want it to clip.
Gotcha.
And you're always safe on that if you take the lowest and fit to the two higher.
Yeah.
Now,
As John and I have worked through this on a number of images, and we've gotten to a point where we've decided, oops, maybe we fit the wrong channel, going the wrong way or whatever, and then we've kind of gone back to it. So
well, all you're really losing, you're probably losing a little bit of dynamic range by going the other way, by fitting the higher ones to the lower. You're losing a little dynamic range because you're kind of squeezing the higher ones down rather than stretching the others out.
So for beginners, for beginners who are just still dipping a toe in the water, what would you suggest?
I would just take the lowest and fit to the other two.
Okay.
Okay.
As a no real thought needed rule of thumb.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, and the number you use is the median, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So in this
Hey,
case,
can I stop for a minute? Who's doing dishes back there?
Oh, it's in my place. Yeah.
Okay, can you just mute your microphone if you don't mind? There you go. Thank you. All right, go ahead, John.
okay, so great advice. According to I think I already linear fit these because these values are not what I originally got. So you would linear fit to the lowest. I'll just walk through it here. The lowest I got when I first started this was the median for O3 was 198, the median for S2 was 225, and the median for HA was 435. So I would choose my lowest by using statistics to determine what we just went through. Pick your lowest, and then you would open up these two, your medium and your high, and then you would simply drag and drop these onto those, and then that would complete the linear fit, which would balance them out. Okay, so linear fit's done. Next thing we do is channel combination. So HA is red, S2 is green, O3 is blue.
And can I just interrupt for a minute? Here you're kind of making a decision that you're defaulting to their definitions of red, green, and blue versus choosing colors that you want to use and going down the path of the
Correct.
Narrowband color mapper, which is a tool we kind of dipped a toe into last week. And Scott kind of showed you a little bit of it on Cyril as well. So there's a couple of different tools that you can use here, and John's going the real simple route.
Correct, Mike. Good point. You can go HOO right here, if you want to pursue that, or you can do just the SHO, which is what we're going to do for this demonstration. But it's your choice. I've experimented around, and you get different results. So SHO, your color space is RGB. Now these are grayscale files. We're going to combine these channels, and then you have, this is the unstretched, and now here's your stretched linear image. This has not been stretched yet. So this is typically what you're greeted with.
And you're using a 533 camera, so it's a one-shot color, and you're adding filters for HA and sulfur. Is that right?
No, these are from mono cameras.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm mistaken.
Not my
That's right.
data.
This is data that you got from Telescope Live.
Yeah, I got this way last summer when I was practicing, and I thought it'd be a good example because a lot of people run into this and they see this green and it's like, man, what the heck? You know, so
And,
we're gonna
and for
get to
those that
that.
don't do this, the reason you get green is hydrogen is usually the brightest color. So when you put it in green, I'm sorry, hydrogen is usually the brightest wavelength.
Okay. So what I
Oh, that's
did,
cool. What did you hit? Oh, you
I
just did an unlinked stretch. Okay.
I unlinked the stretch. If you link it, all the channels that you can see down here in the screen transfer function, they're all lined up. When you unlink them and stretch them, then they separate. They separate out. Linwood, you could probably explain this a little bit better, but
Well, the one thing I guess I wanted to add is to tie this back to the linear fit. When you did the linear fit on the median, what it's doing is it's taking the most frequently used values and it's making them roughly the same. That means the most frequently used values are going to come out as a neutral color when you do the channel combination. So there's part of this, not now because he's unlinked it, but with it linked, the background, it's usually a background. There's a lot of nebulosity here, so it's a little hard to tell what it really is. But usually what happens, particularly if it's a galaxy, the background is your median because it's the most of the image is black or gray. So that's the median. So that's what ends up being neutralized. When you unlink it, I don't know what it does, but it makes for different colors, but it also is going to screw up parts of your background. So you're going to see magenta stars and the whatever was black background here, which in this case, you really don't have any. I mean, everything there is dust, I think, except maybe that little patch to the right of your cursor. I think it's all dust everywhere out there.
yeah, that's images edge to edge.
So it's not as meaningful as it would be if this was, let's say, a galaxy and you asked that question.
Good. So there's a
Those
lot
are
of
cool colors when you unlinked it. I usually don't get anything that nice.
Yeah, this is I don't think I didn't write that step down, so I think I just I went from here. The next, okay, so step one is linear fit to lowest. Step two is combine your channels. Step three at this point is blur exterminator. Now this is the new version. Now, if you had, these have got, well, not the best stars.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I want to see this.
Okay, so look, check the edges, corners of your image. If you see stars like this is what Blur Exterminator can do. With it, AI version 4, And you can select, well, I can't see it, so never mind. You want to click correct only. That's going to disable the stellar and the non-stellar adjustments. You drag and drop.
Wow.
And that's what it can do for egg-shaped stars.
And
So
why did you do correct only?
Adam Block went over it in his discussion with Russell Croman a couple days ago, and they discussed why, or Russell discussed why this works, because they had talked before, but it was in a demonstration that he did. By doing this, they used to use correct first, and that's, if you do the hover, it's on at the bottom, it says this function is not available with 4, and they're going to remove it in the future, but the same effect can be accomplished by correct only. So he transitioned from correct first to correct only because of better, what he called, aberration correction.
So do you go back and redo it to do the stellar, I'm sorry, the non-stellar adjustments?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's something to do with flux conservation. So this, after you do this step, you wait to do this step. So you do the correct only first, which gets your stars as round as they can get, and he has a good example. Next, we use script image analysis, image solver. And I think this is already, yeah, this is,
Yeah,
you
it'll
would search for your target. In this case,
it should just pull it in from the headers.
It did. So, but if it didn't fill out these headers, you would search for it here, click it, and then hit OK. So it brings in all the information when it was ascension, RA deck, and time. And you want to make sure that your pixel size and your focal distance are correct. Then you click OK. This is going to add to the FITS header the information needed for the next step, which is SPCC. It's going to put the correct DAC and RA coordinates into the FITS header. That's going to assist SPCC.
By the way, I would argue if you're going to do SPCC, you don't need to bother with the linear fit.
Okay.
Because
Why?
all SPCC is going to do is it's going to refit each of the channels to its own idea of what the color balance should be.
Okay.
So it's the color, the ones that, it's kind of like when you do an unlinked stretch. What that does is sort of undo the linear fit, but does it to a different standard. Well, SPCC is doing it to yet a different standard, but it's doing essentially an unlinked stretch to its own direction.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't hurt. I just don't think it's going to get you anything.
Okay. So when you look, and I had a question on this when I was speaking with Mike Linwood. On your FITS header, are these the 2 entries it makes?
No,
No,
No.
it's up top.
no, it's none of those. I don't see it.
See, I had. Isn't a C? It's a C delt.
I mean, it's a bunch of stuff. It's 8 or 10 lines, and I don't see it. It's unless it's, well, did you let that run to completion?
I don't think he did. Well, it says it's ready.
Yeah. Well, let's see. The next, okay, so after image solver, we use spectrophotometric color calibration. And there's a few settings in here for your filters, for narrowband, in this case. And here's another question I have, Linwood, why does this default?
I have no idea.
Okay,
I don't know why
Yeah,
they're
see,
both the
that's
same.
where that's the same, those are the same values it defaulted to when we did it
Right.
on my machine the other day.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't default to something like HSO or SHO or whatever.
So would these fittings, wavelengths be closer?
I don't remember them, but I mean, they look right.
Okay. So you would, if you're using narrowband, look at your filter, the manufacturer, what the spec is for the wavelength. You would enter that filter in here. And then your bandwidth, 3 nanometers, 7 nanometers. Then click region of interest. In PixInsight, this is called a preview. You would pick a preview, highlight the preview, drag it over here, and then apply SPCC.
And that's of your background. That's the part you want it to make a neutral color.
And see, I have not used the preview before, when I've used this tool.
The graph,
It isn't clear to me what it does with the preview versus the star color.
Yeah.
But it does make a small difference.
Yeah, because it's worked for me.
when it finishes, hopefully you see a graph similar to this. Again, you can do more research on this, but essentially, we're going to do a before and after. So there's before, there's after. It's a modest difference. Okay. So now it is recommended that we go back to blur exterminator. I'll zoom in here to try to get a good area. Another thing with PixInsight is these previews, you can work in them. So if you do a preview, you want to try something, you try it on a preview, which does not affect your main image, which is very nice. So you're not having to hit undo all the time. So here's the default settings for blur exterminator. You can manually enter your PSF. If you want to, I use PSF image and it will look at other stars and give you an average PSF. But for demonstrations, we're just gonna drag and drop. Probably hard to see over there, but there's the difference. Before, after. Before, after. So let me find some nebula. Before, after. Before, after. So it does a very good job sharpening. If you're happy with that, and you can adjust these sliders to fit what you're. If you have halos, you can address those. You can sharpen the stars a little bit more. But we're going to leave it at this for time purposes and apply it to the whole image. And because this is observatory data, we really don't have to fix this much. Okay, so that is step 6. The next step would be star removal. For that, we use star exterminator. We generate star image and I'm going to unscreen stars. Won't go into too much detail, but it's similar to StarNet. What StarNet does, StarNet 2 or okay. All right, so it did a decent job. I ran into this. It
Yeah,
left a
that happened on my image the other day.
It did. And what you can do, which I'm not going to, is use, what do we use? Clone stamp.
Clone stamp.
Yep, PixInsight still has clone stamp. You do that similar to Photoshop. You pick a dark spot over here, and then you would just kind of erase this stuff. Typically, it doesn't do this a whole lot, but that's a very dense area, I guess, in the middle. So there's your stars, and here's your starless image. So step 8 is narrowband normalization. We've got a lot of detail in here, but it's pretty bland. It's pretty colorless. It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Green.
Yeah.
So
Looks like slime.
and this narrowband normalization is a script developed by Bill Blanchin and Mike Cranfield. There's a video on it if you're interested. They explain how Mike explains how it works. So you do a preview. This circle is a real-time preview button of the image you have up. So it's giving you a preview of what it's going to do to the image, to the original behind it. The palette selections are HOO, HSO, I'm sorry, HOO, SHO, HSO, and HOS. So out of those combinations, the channel combination we put together was SHO. That's always going to look your best for the colors you choose. If you went with HOO on your channel combination, then you would want HOO, and similar with any other combinations that you previously made. The lightness, I'll go through them real quick. Lightness is off. Lightness is preserved. HA, 03, and it's pretty obvious which ones aren't going to work for your image, and it may vary with your image. So right now, I wrote down let's do it by the script here. SHO, I chose preserve.
Preserve. Yeah.
And SCNR, I previously chose a value of 0.6, just to take a touch of the green out. I then chose a value of 1.3 to boost the blue, your 03. And then 1.3 worked pretty good to boost the reds. It gives it more of a golden color. A lot of definition in this one. You got pinks. That's why I chose this image. It's this gorgeous.
That's really nice.
Yeah. Down below, I won't go into it, but you can adjust your shadow points, your brightness, your highlight reduction to your taste. If you're happy with this image, well, let's look at the before. That's what we started with the preview off, and this is with the preview on. So we're pretty happy with that. We're going to hit the square button, which is apply, and it's going to apply it to the image behind it, to the original image. Okay. Okay, so here's your linear, we're still linear, SHO image with the narrowband normalization script applied.
It doesn't look like you're linear.
No.
I'm sorry, non-linear. No.
No, you haven't stretched it yet.
Well,
No,
but the button isn't showing that it's that a preview stretch is on.
The green thing right here is This is still linear. This is in a linear state. We're going to stretch it next using a program called GHS. I'm not going to use this one.
Humor me 1 second. Hit the preview stretch button and then unhit it.
Stretch.
Yeah.
Kill it. And then bring it back.
Oh, I just the icons aren't, at least on the screen share at the top, the icons aren't lighting up the way I expected. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, I agree with you, Linwood.
Okay, so this is linear image that's been colorized with narrowband normalization to give you a good idea of what this, is going to look like without going through other steps along the way that I believe have been used in the past. It was quite time consuming. Linwood would probably be the foremost expert on how you would process that process, take the process from that green image and give it color. This is before my time, and I honestly don't have
I have a
narrowband.
scientific method. It's called a random walk, or from when I was in school, a drunkard's walk. You just wander around through the options until you like the color.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
this GHS is a game changer for me because I always struggled through the stretch process until I learned this.
Okay, so I told you in the email, there's one step that's like throwing at a dart at a moving target in outer space. This is it. Which one do I want? I want.
By the way, what nebula is that?
Eta Carina.
Okay. Is that the pillar? No, that's not Pillars of Creation, is it?
No, this
That's
is
the one
southern.
but that's the one Webb did early in its days.
Yeah, that's the second image Webb did.
Right.
Okay, so Scott touched on this. Generalized hyperbolic stretch. You can use it as is, or stretch it with an arcsine stretch, a linear stretch, image inversion, image blend, or STF transformation. There's a lot you can do with this. I'm just going to stick to one method right now. It's out of the box how it comes. So you're going to select your image. Your image name is up here, which is image 37. And it's going to apply a screen transfer function to it. So it takes the stretch, no stretch. Now, there's two primary buttons or sliders you're going to work with down here. And I'll just zoom this up. So there's your histogram, okay? Zoomed in. It's way off to your left. But here's your red, your green, and your blue, your S, H, and O. It's got a pretty decent histogram, but it's way over here. So we all know in Photoshop how to, what stretching is going to do. So to stretch it, you're going to move this slider up. I think I had mine at, yep, 3.7. And then the local stretch intensity controls how tightly focused the stretch is around the symmetry point. It's quite a bit to read right now, but I can show you. If you go too far.
But you haven't picked a symmetry
Right,
point.
right now it's based on black, isn't it? Because you haven't chosen one.
Haven't chosen a symmetry point yet. So this is what I usually do. This is great data. It comes out just too good for practice, but you would normally start here I would normally bring it up so I could see a little bit, okay? Then you're going to zoom in and you're going to pick a symmetry point. In the upper right, you'll see the value of that symmetry point you just picked, 0.0041. We're going to send that value to the symmetry point. Let me reset everything. Okay. Reset this.
You gotta stretch it again.
Yeah, I didn't reset this. So here it is. You know, see, this is almost too good. You would normally get something like this. You pick your symmetry point, which is, you want to go from darkest to lightest. Send that value to the symmetry point. And now down in the lower left portion of this box, you'll see your symmetry point. So from there, you're going to stretch it. And then,
And you know, in photography, we always talk about moving the shooting to the right, moving the histogram to the right, and that's essentially what we're doing with this stretch process.
once you have it, you don't want to blow it up too much. You want to do this in small increments. So stretch factor, 2.4, and then a modest stretch around the symmetry point, and then you apply that, and then as you can see, there's your image. The good thing about this, and then you reset the tool. Okay, so say you're unsure. I want to create a new image. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to create a GHS1 image. Okay, so I'm going to pick another symmetry point. I'm going to send that value, and then I'm going to start stretch it a little bit more. And you see that graph, that histogram coming away from it. And you can zoom in to be sure you're not blowing anything out. Well, that looks pretty good. You're going to apply that stretch. Now it's going to give it a name of GHS1. So you've got two images now. You got your first one and then your second one. So you can continue to name them as you go along. In case you screw up, you can come back to the last good image and then work with that. That's what I do. I'm going to go a little bit more. Pick a little brighter area.
Just to interject, John and I did this with an image I had of the Orion Nebula that had a pretty blown out core, and we were working with it the other day, and we were able to just reduce that core down where we could, you know, really see the detail inside there. So Linwood's always said that you don't have to shoot, you know, 10 or 20 or 30-second subs to get a good Orion. And I think with the way we were managing this tool, you've proven that, Linwood.
Okay. Where my cursor falls, you'll see over on the histogram graph here a yellow line. That's essentially the symmetry point. And if you click and move at all, it thinks you're zooming. So right now, I'm in the middle of this green area. I think, Mike, with yours, we had a big hump right here, and we chose to center that hump as a symmetry point, and we sent it, and then we worked that, we smoothed out that hump by increasing that.
Yeah, I think we were working with like an HOO type of palette, and there was a predominance of red in the image.
Okay. What's
A dumb question. Mine doesn't look like yours.
There's two versions of this.
Yeah, you're looking in process instead of script utilities.
There's one in processes and there's one in script.
You have to go to script and then utilities to get this version.
And when I do, it pops up and says, it's now available as a process module.
Yeah. But it doesn't work the same.
So the script is better?
Yeah, we think so.
I use it. The script gives you your preview window here. The process gives you a pop-up preview window.
Maybe it's just what you're used to working with. John and I have been working with this one and feel pretty comfortable with it.
I was just wondering which one's being I mean, are they updating both of them?
We don't know.
What version does the process one say?
It doesn't say. I'm looking to see if I can find a place that it would say. I don't actually know where to look.
Check the write-up, the nomenclature.
I'm gonna leave well enough alone here. You don't want to blow out your stretch. This is
Yeah,
the
that looks
most
really good.
important part of your whole image. If you blow this, everything else from now on is just, you can't be fixed. So I'd rather go dark than too light. So I would look in here, and that looks pretty good to my eyes. I could always make it brighter, but once you blow it out, you're done. So I'm calling it good right here.
I mean, you can see that purple is just about spiking. It's about peaking.
Yeah, that
You're
looks,
you're almost to the point where you're starting to lose data up there.
yeah. So I'm gonna call it good. So step 9, you're here. I'm gonna keep this image, the one I created. I gave it a name, GHS1. The other image, I'm just gonna kind of put aside, not gonna use it. So in 9 steps, you're here.
By the way, it's 3.0.4-3 is the process.
Okay, so that's a newer
That's a newer number, yeah.
yeah. So we'll have to play with that.
Really? Okay.
And usually that front number means something when it changes.
Yeah, usually that's a big jump. There you just get the histogram. So where's your preview? You have to click the real-time
Yeah,
preview.
you have to hit there.
Okay, so that's not much different than the
I'd have to look at them side by side.
Yeah, and I don't know anything. I just noticed my screen was different. It's the only reason I ask.
I mean, there's zoom controls in the corner of the script one.
Well, the preview controls, the preview zoom is the thing over, it uses,
click on the preview and see if you can get a symmetry point readout somewhere.
yeah, well, the yellow line is moving on the thing.
Right.
Yeah, you can do it. There's your symmetry point right there.
Okay, but can you click send to SP?
Yeah. So here's the value
All right.
where it
Well, it's
was
just
in the
working
upper
with
corner.
a real-time preview versus the built-in.
Well,
Yes.
the nice thing about processes is that they're not what's the word? I'm missing the name of when a window sits in front and you can't do anything else with a script. Once that window's open, you can't do anything else on PixInsight while the script is open.
Well, I like this actually. This, I like, because you can make that preview bigger.
Right.
Cool.
True, yeah, that's, yeah, have a big preview is nice.
Modal.
Uh,
I'm sorry. Modal is the word I couldn't think of.
That zoom was a little funky in the script one.
Well, it's the standard real-time preview zoom, so you have to
Yeah.
use the little things down at the bottom. So you have to draw out. Yeah, you have to do that.
Okay, so now we have a nonlinear RGB image. We've stretched. We're happy with it. Now we're back to linear stars. I'm just going to cover how to do stretching in GHS. I've tried it with a couple ways with the histogram transformation, arcsine stretch. I've tried it with a couple different ways. So I'm just going to use, well, let's use the other version. Here's the process version of GHS, just to give you
Yeah, let's try that.
an idea. So I guess you'd have to kill the stretch on this before you do this.
Well, you must have to.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
There you go.
All right. So this is pretty much just a straight stretch. You can zoom in to make sure you're not blowing up your stars.
And I've done like a couple of iterations of this when I'm doing stars, just to make sure that, see, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty close. And if you're happy with the stars, the way, whichever way they come up. So we're at 2 point, let's call it 3. If you were to go too far, obviously, if you not go far enough, but between the zoom and back button there, you can get to a pretty good stretch. The one thing I don't see here are the saturation and the color options that the script version has.
Yeah.
I didn't cover those, but that's another thing I didn't notice. Okay, so if you're happy with your stars, apply it, reset, close the tool, close your preview, and here's your stars. So nonlinear image, nonlinear stars.
I don't think. Why is that thing still indicating as a preview stretch that's turned on?
What are you seeing up here?
No, go 3 out of 4 icons to the left. Right there.
Enable or disable screen transfer function.
So turn that off. Oh, it didn't
Okay.
change.
Yeah, it's stretched.
I'm really confused, but okay, never mind. It could be Zoom is making things look funny.
Probably is, yeah. So if your stars, take a look at your stars after your stretch. Look at the color, and there's 2 sides on this. Is to add color to your stars, to leave them the way they are. There is a very great program called Curves where you can change the intensity of the stars. Say you say, well, there's too many stars there. I don't like them. My little nebula is going to be overpowered by the stars. Curves and RGB. If you start dropping that, you can basically reduce your star count. while keeping your intensity right there with a nice S curve using RGB. There's other stuff on here I won't get into, but let's just say then we're happy with our stars. We want to put them back in. How do you do that? There's probably 3 ways to do that. What we're going to do today is called green stars. This is another program. Mike, I don't think I covered this over this. We used integrate stars.
Yeah, and we had problems when I was doing it, getting it to talk to the server or something.
Yeah. So this is another Bill Blanchard and Mike Cranfield creation. We're going to replace stars. You can also remove stars with this. Now, I have not used this compared to Star Exterminator. I may at some point in the future when I have time. So you pick your starless view, which is, I've labeled it GHS1.
It is.
And image 37 stars.
That's not the same name. There's an O in one of them.
The trouble with having all these images on the left is you have to be careful to pick the right one. I should have used a cleaner version.
Yeah, but the starless one you have, it doesn't have an O in it.
You are correct, sir.
There it is.
Thank you. That looks better.
Much better.
I like that. This is a hell of a lot easier than messing with pixel math.
So we're going to create a new image. I always have this checked in case, or else it's going to, I think, overwrite it. I'm thinking of pixel math though, but I always create a new image and I give it a name, call it ETA1, and it's going to create a separate image when it does it. You hit the green apply button, and you're done.
And John, with this, they both have to be in the same format, linear or stretched, correct?
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. If I were to combine a linear and a non-linear, one of them isn't going to show up.
Yeah.
And Linwood, if you want to chime in on how that screening helps when we use Star
Nope.
Exterminator.
Nope, I do not understand the math.
Okay.
I like it better. It works better. You don't, if you zoom way in on these stars, they probably don't have little halos, but I don't understand how it works.
Okay.
It's a blending mode. It's the same as the Photoshop screen blending mode in their layers. That's what you use to, if you were to do the add the stars in Photoshop, you would add them in and then change the layer to screen.
Okay. Screen mode.
It's just a blending mode.
Okay.
It takes out all the black.
I use it, but I don't know why, but it works, so I'm not going to do anything different. So
Is it
there's
like
your
the green screen that they use on TV shows?
Okay.
Similar, I guess, yeah.
I don't know. That's a pretty image.
Yeah. So this is step, we could have went into curves, and you still can, and I'll just, if curves transformation is going to make this, you can tweak it if the colors aren't enhanced enough. So you can make the image brighter and take away the dark if you want darker outer space. You can reset the tool. Saturation, you can bump up saturation. To show an example, if you go too far, it gets really crazy. So you got your saturation here. You just want to really go easy on this. This is CIEC component. This will help with color a little bit. If you just wanted to attack the reds over the whole image right here, there's masks that you should use ideally when you use this tool, but it's pretty good. An RGBK for adjusting your brightness across the whole image. I don't know how it looks in Zoom land, but
Pretty.
that looks a little bit corrected to me. So I'm
It
gonna,
looks a little oversaturated and a little contrasty.
yeah, I think
Pretty.
okay.
It's like the 60s all over again.
It is.
Okay, so step 13 was reintegrate stars. Now from here, you can go into Photoshop. You can continue on with other image enhancements. But for all practical purposes, it's ready for Instagram and YouTube.
And John, the only thing I noticed that you didn't go through is some type of noise reduction process
Good point.
in here, which
Good
when you
point.
and I have worked together, we found that the noise exterminator does a really nice job and actually a better job than Topaz.
Exactly. So let's go back to plan A here. And I'll just demonstrate what I found be a very good tool. If you're familiar with PixInsight or any sort of dynamic background extraction, it's a process, or can be a process to go in there. Time consuming, there's quite a bit of delicacy to get those sample points in the correct place. So I'm just going to go through this real quick. I crop this image. Okay, so that's where we're at right there. So I rotated this image. We go full screen here. Put this stuff over here. So the process is crop your image, and then background extraction. Dynamic background extraction typically starts like this. Then you generate samples, and then you move the samples off of your nebula and off of any star. See that star? You can't do that. You have to move all these points off of nebulas and off the stars. Now, I did that with the Milky Way, and I'm glad I came across this tool. Instead, there's a script called Graxpert, and I've compared this.
This thing is great.
I've compared this to.
And this one's free, right?
This is free.
Yeah.
Yes. I've compared this to dynamic background extraction side by side and automatic background extraction. And it is just, it does exactly what you want it to do in DBE and ABE. So, okay, so the image is Pac-Man group. You can still choose subtraction or division. I'm going to choose subtraction. I'm not going to do any smoothing, but if it didn't give you what you want, you can always go in here and alter that. And then click apply. So this is a pretty even image. Okay. The more background noise pollution, vignetting, you have your image, the more this is going to be apparent as to how good it works. So after, that's the before, this is the after, there's before. That's probably really not a good image to demonstrate it. Let's take one of my images. Yeah. Okay, so here you can see definitely gradients, okay? You got green on your lower left, you got red on your upper right.
Yep.
So this is going to be a better example of, sorry, what Graxpert can do. There it is.
Nice.
So that saves a lot of time. And then from here, you would just continue on with your workflow, which I'm not going to get into, but thanks, Mike, for bringing that up. But that's a super time saver right there. And
Yeah.
it does a wonderful job. Default settings out of the box. So that's my 12-step program. 13 if you count the Miller Lite, but
I would. Maybe
Any
not
questions?
Miller Lite, but I would count something like that. All right, good job, John. Thank you so much for doing that. What kind of questions, those of you guys who are not familiar with PixInsight, what kind of questions do you have? Don, I know you were looking into maybe giving it a try. What do you think? You're on mute.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start asking questions at this point.
Hey,
I
hey,
get
can
that.
I ask a simple question? How did you get Gray Expert into PixInsight?
It's just a script. You bring it in the way you would in any of the others.
let me check real quick.
Well, the others you put in a repository and then it downloads it for you.
Oh, you know what? We had to download a DMG file or an exe file. We had to execute it. And
Yep.
then we had to point it. You go into the wrench and point it to the executable. That was a weird one.
It's a little different, yeah.
Yeah, it's different.
You can choose your Mac OS, Windows. You download the file, you execute, launch it.
Okay, I mean, I did that. I'm not in Mac, but I did that. But how do
Okay.
I didn't see anything about PixInsight. I just now have a standalone program.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay, that's when it first came out, or the way it's always been, is a standalone program. You would import your image, you would
Yeah,
do the
I was
background
hoping not to
extraction,
do that, yeah.
and then you would import it back into PixInsight or Photoshop. But they've integrated it now as a script. Check under,
Oh, it's a script, not a process.
no, it's a script.
It's in
Go to
Toolbox.
Script Toolbox Graxpert.
Script, I don't have a toolbox. Under scripts, I don't have toolbox. Do I have to restart PixInsight maybe?
I believe you may have to.
I've got a whole bunch of stuff in my toolbox. Are you on, what version are you in on?
The latest, I just installed it last night.
Okay,
There's nothing, you don't, under script, there's no toolbox.
I do not have the word toolbox under script.
Oh,
Here.
interesting.
Can you see
Yeah,
it?
there's a lot in there.
wow.
Let me check
Mine's
the
right under
repository.
render.
Well, and this is one of the things I was saying to Don or somebody, is that after you start using these things, you don't know where they came from and how they're hooked up, that it doesn't seem to preserve that. Although I think you can go in here and go into feature scripts, and you should be able to see something about it. But yeah, I don't have those, and I thought it might be here, but I don't see it here either.
Um,
I'm not sure why that isn't showing the whole thing either. This is a whole pile of things missing there, maybe because of Zoom.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, it must be, the internet knows all. I'll figure it out later. I just thought you might know.
I think the repository link URL you're looking for, and I'm checking it right now, is www.iDeviceApps.de/PixInsight/utilities. Let me check that.
I do not have that one here, so
I think that's the one that's going to give you that.
can you do that one more time?
https://www.iDevice iDevice apps apps.de /capital P Pix capital I Insight /capital U Utilities /.
And the apps is a separate thing, so it's iDevice.apps or iDevice apps.
iDevice apps, one word.
I just
So,
put it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the kind of thing that kind of makes me nuts about it is you then, it's hard to tell later, like you have something called utilities. How do you know where it came from?
It'll end up in your program files, Linwood. What happened is that when I went to download it, it forced me to do a download. I downloaded it, and I got a DMG file, which is the equivalent of an exe in Windows. And so I double clicked that, and it ran, and it ended up in my applications folder. For you guys would be program files. And then when we set it up, we had to point the link to the application folder. So it is different than just putting in the URL.
Oh yeah, it created toolbox for me with a whole bunch of stuff in it.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
he's providing like a half a, no, 1, 2, 3, looks like about 8 or 9 different things here.
I think his website goes over that.
And I didn't
Is
find,
he the guy in Germany?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, okay, so I found it. I got it. I'm there. It's cool.
Okay, cool.
Good.
All
I
right,
haven't
so did you have another question?
I don't.
Okay. So I wanted to just touch base on a couple of other things. I am putting together a slideshow of a lot of our images because I just think that we are doing a really amazing job with our work, and I think that we put them in the newsletter, but that's people read that on anything from an iPhone to a tablet to maybe a bigger computer. But I think it really makes a big difference when you put it up on a big screen like a planetarium. And so if you have images that you have not sent me over the last, let's say the last year, that you would like included in the slideshow, use the upload link on the website, size it to at least 2,000 pixels, and I will get it in the slideshow. I'll be working on that I'll probably start working on it here in the next couple of days, and get that going, because I want to show it in our next meeting, and then I'll probably put it on the website. I think I'd like to do this about every 2 or 3 months, just to kind of remind the club that we've got some amazing astrophoto work going on here. And I think that it may help us, get some other guys in here with like-minded people like us that like to do this and maybe increase the group a little bit, add some diversity, what have you. And so there's that.
Hey, Mike, while you're there, what about photos that we sent before the upload process? Do you have those too?
I have, yes, they may not be the same resolution, yeah, they may not be the same. So my suggestion would be go ahead and send them back again. Wherever possible, I can upscale them. But if you have any questions, just shoot me a note or send me a text or give me a call and we can go over what I've got.
Okay.
If you've sent me an image, or if you've sent me an image, I've got it still. I don't get rid of too many images. That's why my email is now screaming at me because it's almost full. Anyhow, so let's do that over the next couple of days, if you would, including sending me any new images that you want to use for the newsletter. I'll be working on the newsletter here in the next few days. The new issue of the AI Reflector magazine is out. I got mine in the mail the other day. It's got a nice big section on Orion. So that's some interesting reading. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Mario Mata. Mario is speaking at the general meeting on, I think it's whatever it is, July or January 5th or 7th or something like that, 4th, whatever that first Thursday is. Mario is speaking, and he's got a really interesting topic, kind of on the early days of cellophane, and all of that. So I would encourage you again to try to attend in person. Get out and go in person and support him, and we will try to put together a dinner again. I think that's about all I wanted to bring up for this time around. Does anyone have anything else to add or any other questions?
I had something to add. I don't know how many people got the note from Michael Severus. Those that attend Tony's Thursday call might have. There is starting in 36 minutes. There is a talk that people are invited to if you're interested. It's a webinar, a Zoom webinar. From the NASA Night Sky Network about a review of the NASA, not Astroband, APODs from 2023. I have no idea if it's any good or bad or indifferent.
I don't know if I have time or the bandwidth to sit on another Zoom call tonight, but I might try to look at the recording afterwards.
Here is the
I think I got that email.
okay, well, I was just going to send the link. You do have to register. There's the registration link in the chat. If anyone wants to do it, it's free. I mean, it'll probably have a bazillion people on it, so they're not going to notice if you join and aren't there and and wander around or drop out. You just recorded me saying that. Do not tell them this.
Okay, I will stop the recording so you can say anything you want.